This talk is about people. My maternal grandfather was born on the Lower East Side 140 years ago to a new immigrant family. He went on to become a graduate of City College, a public school teacher, a public school principal, a businessman, and a philanthropist. And my paternal grandfather came here alone at the age of 16 from Switzerland to start a better life and founded a successful retail business. That makes me a second and a third generation American. I want to talk to you today and make 4 points. 1, that we are all immigrants. 2, that New York City is an immigrant city, past, present, and future. 3, that there is much more that our governments could be doing to help our newest New Yorkers, especially not to put new obstacles in their way. And 4, that there are things that we all need to do, every single one of us, to build the current and future strength of this city by welcoming immigrants and making us a thriving place for everybody. Point 1, we are all immigrants. Unless you are descended from America's First Nations or your ancestors were brought here in chains, you are an immigrant. You, your parents, your grandparents, maybe your great-grandparents came here. They came here fleeing oppression, afraid of death, with no economic opportunity. They came here for a new start. Almost all of them, by the way, came without papers. So this word undocumented really has very little meaning. When they came here, as you know from your own family histories, or I hope you know, they prospered. They found jobs. They found homes. They found schooling for their children. They got better health care. And they did all they could to be successful in New York. And always, they reached back to help the next generation of immigrants, sometimes informally, by just helping them to find shelter and jobs, and often formally, by creating organizations that would support immigrants on an ongoing basis. They built a city of amazing diversity. There are 800 languages spoken in New York, 200 recognized in our school system. This is a place where a young girl can come as an 8th grader from another country, speaking no English, and become her high school valedictorian. It's an amazing place. And, point 2, New York is an immigrant city. You will be surprised by this number, I think, but 40% of our city are immigrants. 60% of our city are immigrants or children of immigrants. That is who we are. The people who came, some of your family, took jobs, survived, and thrived, often moving into visible positions in the arts, in entertainment, in business, and by the way, often in political office, because it's a place to go to make a difference. Now, here's what's critical. Not only are these immigrants our past and our present, they are our future. We need new waves of immigrants. We have jobs, we have labor shortages in construction, in hospitals and home health care, in restaurants and in food service. We need the immigrants with their resilience to come and take these jobs. And by the way, we need the money that they are already starting to earn. Who are today's immigrants? Well, you know probably that a lot of them come from south of the border. Perhaps you know particularly from Venezuela. But right now, we are welcoming large numbers of immigrants also from Afghanistan, from Russia, from Ukraine, and from several countries in West Africa. The immigrants who are coming into New York today come for just the same reasons. I met with them at the border between Ciudad Juarez and El Paso. They're afraid for their lives. They're worried about gang violence. They have sick members of their families who can only get better health care in America. And boy, are they resilient. Just think for a minute about the Venezuelans. They traveled through 6 countries by bus, walking. They crossed the Darien Gap, which is considered one of the most dangerous rainforests in the world, to get to the Mexico-Texas border to get into this country for those same reasons, so that they could be in a place where they could have a better future. Some of them, by the way, legally come to apply for asylum. Asylum is legal, it's protected by international law, and by the way, you can only apply for asylum in America if you get onto American soil. So that's the first barrier that they have to cross. I also want to note to you that all of the stuff about numbers is really wrong. We are currently imagining, like for the last 20 months or so, and looking into the future, that we may receive about 10,000 new immigrants a month. There were times in the first part of the 20th century where that many people came into the city in one day. So these waves of immigrants are really small in terms of the past, and they're making a difference. So before I go on to talk about government and about your contribution, I want to make a critical aside. The negative views of the economics of immigration that you hear all around you are wrong. In 2021, New York immigrants contributed $61 billion to our economy. The immigrants, as they come, not in their first weeks or months, but as they come, they are workers, they are taxpayers, they are consumers, they are entrepreneurs, they are restaurateurs, they start businesses. Their taxes support federal programs that they're not even yet eligible for. But the money is coming into the federal government and being used in ways that protect all of us. Foreign-born Americans who come here, who come to New York, are people who are a source of our power and our prosperity. Okay, so let's talk about government. And you'll permit me to talk first about what government should not be doing. Today's newspaper, again, make them move. Pull them out of the shelters where they are. That's crazy. It really is crazy. We have an obligation to support people. We want to help them on their way. But serving 30-day and 60-day eviction notices to right now 19,000 adults and 18,000 children does not help. It siphons off the energy that those people are trying to use to get job training or to get a job or to make sure that their kids' schooling is okay. It disrupts that job training. It disrupts the effort to build community inside a shelter or a hotel. And most tragically, it's making families often pull their children out of classrooms where the school responses have been extraordinary, where the principals, the teachers, the parent associations have been there for these new arrivals and for their families, and that schooling is now being disrupted by these eviction notices that are doing nothing but causing unnecessary stress. The city believes that many people can be convinced to go someplace else, but one, it's turning out not to be true. It's important that they want to stay here, and I want to say again that we need them. So what should government be doing? We need, and the city is just beginning to do this, but it's 2 years in, to get individual case management, to use trained social workers to sit down with individuals and with families to listen to their plans, to hear their particular problems, to make sure that they know their rights, and then to help them move into those job training classes, those English as a second language classes, the things that will make a difference. The city could help us tremendously by having a central place to advertise every single one of those courses that's being offered around the city and make them more accessible, and it's not yet doing that. The city could respond to what at last count was 200 houses of worship, mosques, churches, and synagogues that offered to shelter between 8 and 20 people on a permanent basis. Those shelters would cost us much less per night, and they would be much better places to build a sense of community. And we need the city to urge the private philanthropists in New York, foundations and individual donors, to move money to the many extraordinary not-for-profits, community centers, settlement houses, houses of worship, just grassroots groups that are doing this work. They are running soup kitchens. They are setting up all kinds of clothing exchanges. They are, most importantly, offering legal clinics where people can complete applications for work authorization. It's valuable and important, and it says a lot about New York that that's happening all over. And it really is crazy that it's not organized, that you can't find out easily, where could I go to file these papers? How can I be sure that I have the appropriate documents, that I'm moving toward employment, toward legal employment? And by the way, of course, it's not just the city, it's also the federal government. The federal government needs, as it looks at national immigration policy, it needs also to help every one of those cities that has new, large immigrant populations. It needs, please, to find a way to approve work authorization applications more quickly. And in the case of West Africa, we need this federal government to extend temporary protected status to people, again, who are here out of fear of their lives because they can't stay in their own countries. But here's the most important message. There are things that every single one of us could be doing to strengthen our city by welcoming and supporting our newest New Yorkers. The first thing, though, that I want you to do is educate yourselves about your own family story. Everyone should know, are you a first generation or a second generation or a third generation American? Where did your family come from? Why did they come here? And what was their story of becoming the New Yorkers that you know them to be? So educate, learn, and educate others. But also volunteer. These groups all over the city, in schools, the public school responses where these New York kids are going are just amazing. So if they're in your local public school, if you hear about the Little Shop of Kindness, if you hear about Africana in West Harlem, these are all places that, to be honest with you, are running with almost no money. They're welcoming literally daily, every new wave of immigrants who come in, providing them with what they most need, and as I said, helping them to put down their roots. All of these organizations need your help. So volunteer, learn, educate, volunteer, and advocate. I just listed for you the things that we need the city, and by the way, also the state and the federal government to do to make this a better place for the people who are arriving, who will continue with all of us to build our cities for the future. And so that's my bottom line. We have a set of current policies that we need to change, and we need to change them because not only are they unwelcoming, but they are damaging immigrants who are the future of New York, and they are not in our interest as a city. So I hope that the thrust of this conversation is to make you think about yourselves as immigrants, think about your neighborhood, your community organizations, and think about the ways and places where each of you can make a difference. Thank you.